This boy's father died tragically. The reason for his death was that he was cut off from the queue, and the queue jumper was a high-ranking official. Because of his special status, his father, who could have been saved, left him forever. The boy was devastated. He screamed at the doctor. Then he rushed to the attending physician. He tried with all his might to make a deal with him, but the attending physician felt no guilt, and then he left without a trace. The next day, the boy came to the hospital with a baseball bat and smashed the hospital's medical equipment. At that moment, a doctor suddenly appeared and subdued the boy. Then he took out a sedative from his pocket. Then the boy fainted. When he woke up again, he saw a doctor treating his wounds. He didn't choose to continue with his anger. The doctor told him that if he wanted to take revenge, he had to become strong. Then the doctor turned and left, and it was these words completely inspired the boy's fighting spirit. When he came back again, he appeared as an intern. His name is Dong Ju. He does what he wants to do. This day, there was a collapse at the construction site. They rushed to the emergency room. A large number of injured people are arriving. Doctors at the hospital were rushing to save the seriously injured. A girl suddenly called out to him and asked him to save her mother. Dong Ju looked at the scene in front of him. The woman in front of him is having trouble breathing. As an intern, he couldn't treat the patient alone. He could only find Ray Jing, who was treating the victim, but Ray Jing thinks it's just a fever. At that moment, there is a special patient in the hospital. There was a steel bar stuck in his body. Everyone was dumbfounded. The scene in front of us has left the doctors at a loss, and the most skillful director is performing another surgery. Ray Jing had no choice but to call the director. The chief asked Ray Jing to do a preliminary examination of the victim. While transporting the examination equipment, the rebar inserted into the injured man's body accidentally fell off. The sudden accident left everyone in a state of confusion. Ray Jing was dumbfounded. After the director's reprimand, Ray Jing finally came back to her senses. The director told her to hold on for 10 minutes, and then he would take care of it himself. It's obvious, the current environment is not conducive to surgery. Ray Jing doesn't care too much. She cut open the victim's belly and put her hand inside. Dong Ju also came to the scene. He was shocked by what he saw. Ray Jing was trying to find the victim's artery with her bare hands. The victim's blood pressure is dropping rapidly. If she can't find the artery, he'll lose his life due to blood loss. Luckily, the bleeding was stopped at the critical moment. Everyone is relieved. The victim's vital signs have returned to normal. At this moment, the director called. He was shocked to hear that the situation had been stabilized. The doctors were incredulous. Ray Jing then rushed the victim to the operating room. This scene caught Dong Ju's attention. The director also recognized Ray Jing. Just when her colleagues were praising her, the deputy director suddenly scolded Ray Jing. It turned out that a patient with pneumonia almost died because of delayed treatment. Ray Jing didn't report it in time. She guessed it was Dong Ju, who snitched on her. As revenge, Ray Jing gave all the difficult patients to Dong Ju to handle. Either he was beaten up by drunken patients, or female patients called him a hooligan. Because of this, their relationship became very delicate. On this day, a cardiac arrest patient came to the hospital, but no matter how they tried to save him, the patient was still unresponsive. Ray Jing asked to operate on the patient immediately. Everyone thought Ray Jing should wait for the attending doctor to arrive. At that moment, Dong Ju came with his instrument. The two of them were working together. They were able to operate with ease. They've grown fond of each other. The operation was completed successfully. The patient was brought back from the brink of death, but it pissed off the attending. Then he called Ray Jing to a corner. He went up and kicked her. He then reprimanded Ray Jing for operating on the patient without authorization. No matter how much Ray Jing tried to explain, the attending doctor wouldn't listen. He even scolded her, and Dong Ju saw it all. Ray Jing was very sad. Obviously she did what a doctor should do, but she was never understood. At this time, Dong Ju came quietly. The girl in front of him made his heart ache. He came forward and grabbed Ray Jing, suddenly kissed her. Ray Jing struggled hard and left in a panic. Then they met again in front of the hospital. Dong Ju confessed his love for her, but he didn't know that Ray Jing's boyfriend was the director of the hospital. While waiting at the red light, Ray Jing recalled the scene where she kissed Dong Ju. The director took out a ring and put it on Ray Jing's finger, but Ray Jing was hesitant. Then she told her boyfriend about her kiss with Dong Ju. Apparently, she rejected him. He hit the gas and collided with a car on the other side of the road, and they went to the hospital. Ray Jing was already unconscious. Dong Ju was so distressed that he hurriedly wanted to examine Ray Jing, but when she woke up, she asked to check her boyfriend first. Dong Ju was puzzled, but Ray Jing said that the director was the one who hit his head in the accident. His condition should be more serious. After Ray Jing's repeated requests, Dong Ju could only agree, but he found the director and the female nurse chatting in the stairwell. Dong Ju waited at the door and bumped into them coming back. He didn't want to look at the disgusting director. Then he turned around and left. At that moment, the director suddenly fainted. Dong Ju rushed to check on him, but found that the director was not breathing. That was it. The director died in a car accident. The next day, Dong Ju went to the hospital room to see Ray Jing, but found that Ray Jing had already left. At that moment, Ray Jing was heading to the forest alone, because she couldn't accept the fact that the director died. She thinks that what she said to the director indirectly caused the accident. At that moment, she fell down the hill. On the other side, her colleagues couldn't contact Ray Jing. This made Dongju very anxious. Late at night, a strange man found Ray Jing. He rescued her. When Ray Jing woke up, the man said her injuries were serious. After the operation, she'll probably be left with aftereffects. This is the worst thing that could happen to Ray Jing as the surgeon. At this time, Dongju was unable to contact Ray Jing. 5 years later, Dongju was successfully transferred with excellent grades. He was joined by his colleague, In Bum. They are very well recognized. After the meeting, the hospital's executives were all courting In Bum. It turns out that In Bum is the director's son. The director is using his position to help his son, Dongju, who has no background, wants to realize his own value. A colleague told him that unless you can treat a VIP patient, Dongju knew he wouldn't have that chance, because that opportunity was in the hands of the dean. But at that moment, the dean asked him to go to his office to discuss something. In the dean's office, the doctor told him that there was a VIP patient he needed to treat, but Dongju knew it was a conspiracy. This VIP patient can't be cured at all. They want Dongju to be held responsible for medical negligence. Then Dongju turned around and left. Then the director stopped him. He recognized him as the boy who vandalized the hospital 10 years ago. The attending doctor has become the director. Dongju was surprised. The dean kept on stimulating Dongju. If you want to succeed, you have to seize this opportunity. Otherwise, he had no guts. And that's what made Dongju angry. The operation began, but during the operation, an accident occurred. The patient died. He also took the blame for the hospital. The hospital's top management shifted all the blame to Dongju. He was assigned to Siak Hang Hospital in a small township. He had no choice but to go to a bar for a drink. A man suddenly fainted in the restaurant. As a doctor, Dongju rushed to check on him. Then he started to do chest compressions, but he was stopped by a man. Dongju thought the man was challenging his authority. Dr. Kim looked at Dongju with disdain. He then uses the Heimlich maneuver to revive the patient. Dr. Kim tried to teach Dongju a lesson. Then he tried to cut off his hand. Believing it, Dongju broke free. He ran away without looking back. With nowhere else to go, he came to this rural hospital. He was sent down from a big hospital and was very arrogant. He said he wouldn't stay here for long. The kind director didn't care what he said. He received him with great hospitality. But Dongju never expected to meet Ray Jing here. They were both surprised to see each other here. Ray Jing seemed to be afraid to see Dongju. She left the place. At that moment, a man with a bloody face drove up. He was already unconscious. Then he crashed into the cars in the hospital. The sound of the crash attracted the attention of the medical staff. They immediately went to the rescue. Ray Jing arrived first to do a preliminary examination of the injured and immobilized his neck. They then took the victim to the emergency room. Ray Jing and Dongju argued over the victim's diagnosis. Dongju was surprised by the sudden appearance of Dr. Kim. He's the one who chopped off his hand earlier. The head nurse analyzes the victim's condition in detail. Dr. Kim arranged for everyone to start cooperating with the surgery. He completely ignored Dongju. Dr. Kim's skillful technique has left Dongju dumbfounded. He's like an outsider who can't intervene at the moment. Seeing Dr. Kim trying to operate, Dongju hurriedly stopped him. Dr. Kim impatiently asked the nurse to get rid of Dongju. Then the operation began. With the help of Ray Jing and the head nurse, the operation is going on in an orderly manner. Dr. Kim's control of the operation is very precise. Especially his suturing skills are beyond Evrion's knowledge. Although the operation was successfully completed, but Dongju still thinks it's very dangerous. But Dr. Kim told him that it's better to save him than not to save him. And that's what made Dongju ponder deeply. Afterwards, the victim was sent to the hospital. But not long after, a woman sneaked into the room. Then she pinched the patient's neck. It turns out that not long ago, a man killed her son in an accident with his car. The driver ran away. The injured driver drove to the hospital. Unknowingly, the doctor saved him. The police came to the hospital to investigate, but nothing can be done until the driver wakes up. At that moment, the boy's mother came to the hospital. She claimed to be the driver's family. The nurse brought her to the ward. Then the scene before happened. Ray Jing rushed to stop her. The woman vented all her anger on Ray Jing. When Ray Jing couldn't stand it anymore, colleagues rushed to control the out-of-control woman. Ray Jing told the woman that the one who killed her son was not the patient in front of her. The real murderer has been moved to another ward. This made the woman even more desperate. On the other side, Dongju, who wants to return to the big hospital, is restless. He's already talked to the head of the hospital. As long as he can attend tonight's dinner, he'll be able to go back. Dongju just wants to get out of here as soon as possible. He ran to the front door without looking back. But at that moment, an emergency patient arrived at the hospital. At this moment, he was torn. On the one hand, he had a bright future. On the other side was a patient he had nothing to do with. Facing the patient's family's plea for help, Dongju couldn't help but give up his only chance to return to the headquarter hospital. After realizing that the patient was intoxicated, and accidentally ingested pesticide. He arranged for a gastric cleansing immediately. Dong Ju was doing his best to save the patient. He had already forgotten about the dinner he had arranged with his boss. But no matter how he tried to save the patient's life is forever stopped at this moment. In the face of the family's desperate plea, he could only bow his head and mourn for the deceased. Then Dong Ju called his mother. In the face of his mother's concern, Dong Ju couldn't hold back his tears. Not only did he fail to save the patient, he also lost his chance to return to the headquarters hospital. The next day, Dong Ju met Ray Jing at the hospital. He asked her why she had been avoiding him. Ray Jing didn't want to talk about it. Then she turned around and left. In fact, she's been thinking about Dong Ju a lot over the years, but her boyfriend's death has left her with a serious psychological hangover. Ray Jing started to go into a trance. Then she took a lot of tranquilizers. Colleagues from the hospital arrived. Ray Jing had a scalpel in her hand. Dong Ju was dumbfounded by what he saw. Ray Jing was then taken to the operating room. Dong Ju arrived later. Ray Jing's condition is not good. Dr. Kim in front of him seems to be very experienced. He says the operation must be finished within half an hour. But Dong Ju was skeptical of the doctor at the countryside hospital. Time passes by. Dong Ju is getting more and more surprised. He's never seen such a precise operation before. As an assistant, he's having a hard time cooperating. Dr. Kim is guiding the operation in an orderly manner. Seeing that the time is coming to an end, Dr. Kim's operation is gradually speeding up. At that moment, an accident occurred. Dong Ju was in a panic, and the head nurse quickly solved the problem. The two of them are working well together. The operation was completed successfully. Dong Ju realized his shortcomings. This is the best surgery he's ever seen. Then he approached Dr. Kim. He wanted to know how he knew so much. Dr. Kim ignored his questions. Instead, he kept hitting Dong Ju to make him grow up. What Dong Ju didn't know was, Dr. Kim was a retired medical genius. He's known as the Hand of God. Unbeknownst to him, it was Dr. Kim who pushed Dong Ju's medical skills to the top. One day, a driver dozed off at the wheel. There was a group of cyclists in front of him. The captain of the truck raised his hand to signal the driver, but the truck was out of control. An accident ensued. They were quickly taken to the hospital, but the situation is not good. Two of them have stopped breathing. Dr. Kim is doing his best to save them. On the other side, the truck driver has woken up. He's looking at the injured in front of him. He can't believe that it's his fault. At this moment, the captain is walking slowly. He looked at the dead and wounded team. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Suddenly he saw the driver of the truck, who had woken up. He was about to rush towards the truck driver. Luckily, he was stopped by a police officer. The driver seemed to be in pain. Dr. Kim rushed forward to check on him. The captain didn't want the doctor to save the culprit. For the doctor, all lives are treated equally. Dr. Kim arranged for Dong Ju to treat the injured team member. He treated the truck driver himself. The operation is proceeding in an orderly manner. At that moment, we learned from the traffic police that the team is made up of cancer patients, a medical history that could affect the doctor's ability to treat them. He rushed to the operating room and told Dong Ju that the patient he was treating had a history of cancer. Dr. Kim didn't take it seriously. What he didn't know, Dong Ju had previously failed to operate on a liver cancer patient. That's why he was sent to this hospital. This surprised everyone. On the other hand, when Dong Ju was operating, the patient's blood was gushing out. At that moment, he realized that he had the same problem. Due to the shadow of the previous failed surgery, he panicked. At this point, Dong Ju was unable to operate normally. He could only watch the patient's blood flow. At that moment, Dr. Kim called. He tried to convince him to pull himself together, but Dong Ju couldn't believe in himself. Dr. Kim urged him, "If you don't think you can do it, don't do it," sewing up the patient's wounds to ease his pain, and claimed that no one would laugh at him. At this moment, Dong Ju could only keep apologizing. On the other side, Dr. Kim was disappointed. He told Dong Ju to take care of it. Then he told his assistant to hang up the phone. The head nurse tried to persuade him. He wants Dong Ju to try his best to cure the patient. Even if he fails, at least he'll have a clear conscience. Dong Ju looked at his assistant, who was full of expectation. He mustered up the courage to pull himself together. The operation continues. Dong Ju is slowly recovering. On the other side, Dr. Kim has finished the important part of the surgery. He came to be Dong Ju's assistant. Dong Ju realized his own inadequacy. He was always proud and admired Dr. Kim. The operation went smoothly. His colleagues were amazed by the collaboration, but Dr. Kim doesn't think so. He thinks it was Dong Ju's mistake. He asked Dong Ju why he didn't check the patient's medical history. If he had known that the patient had liver cancer before, the surgery would have gone more smoothly. But no matter how Dong Ju tried to explain, he couldn't get Dr. Kim's approval. Ray Jing saw it all. He told Dong Ju he envied him. He was able to operate with Dr. Kim after just a short time. What Dong Ju didn't know was, Dr. Kim was one of the most talented doctors in China. A colleague's mistake caused a patient's death. The hospital blamed him and threatened to ban him from the profession. he had no choice but to come to this rural hospital. But just then, a special patient came to the hospital. This man's body can't be separated from the equipment. He's very rich and wants to save his life. But Dr. Kim doesn't want to treat him, because he's the chairman of the biggest casino in the area. Just before, the chairman asked his men to bring Dr. Kim here, to make him his personal doctor, but Dr. Kim didn't want to treat him. Then he turned around and left. Dr. Kim asked why he had to treat himself. The chairman said he was the only one with real power. Dr. Kim couldn't believe he trusted him. But even though the chairman said everything, Dr. Kim still refused to let him treat him. But a lot of things have happened lately to make him change his mind. The hospital's outdated equipment and the equipment that breaks down. But he wanted to save more lives. On the other side, the president of the hospital approached the chairman. He recommended a suitable candidate for his surgery. That's when Dr. Kim called. Dr. Kim claimed that he needed the most advanced medical equipment. The chairman agreed without hesitation. Dr. Kim promised to operate on him as soon as the equipment was delivered. The dean was curious as to who could have made the president so concerned. Instead, he showed him a video. In the video, the doctor's courageous act of saving a life was recognized by the president. The president took a closer look. He found out that he was his former rival. The president rushed back to the hospital. He had to do something about it, because the president's decision gave Dr. Kim a chance to get back on his feet. Unbeknownst to him, a huge conspiracy was about to unfold. That day, an emergency patient came to the hospital, but Dong Ju from the emergency department was out on a social call. When he got the call, he rushed back to the hospital, but on the way back, an old lady suddenly stopped them in their tracks. It turns out the tractor had overturned. The woman's husband was taken under the tractor. Dong Ju rushed out to check on her. The man was in pain. With the help of the crowd, he was rescued. Dong Ju is now focusing on the first aid treatment for the uncle. He had already forgotten about the emergency patients at the hospital. While everyone was at a loss, In Bum, who came with him, asked to operate on the patient, because he's a surgeon at the headquarters hospital. But the head nurse claimed that no doctor can operate on a patient without being registered at the hospital. But there was nothing better to do. In Bum had to perform the surgery. At that moment, Dong Ju called. He's on his way to the hospital. He'll be delayed for another 10 minutes. But the nurse told him that the patient has already been treated. Dong Ju is surprised. He doesn't know who's treating the patient. The operation is going well, and In Bum's surgery is running smoothly. He's a surgeon at the headquarters. His experience and skills are recognized by everyone. On the other side, Dong Ju accompanied the injured to the hospital. After arriving at the hospital, Dong Ju explained the condition of the injured as soon as possible. After explaining clearly, he rushed to the operating room, but he met Dr. Kim at the door. They were surprised at each other. They thought each other should be in the operating room. Dr. Kim came to the operating room and asked about the patient. He was told that the patient was fine. The operation was successfully completed. Dr. Kim recognized In Bum's skills. But at that moment, the president of the hospital suddenly arrived. The two of them were furious at each other. But at that moment, Ray Jing and In Bum suddenly appeared. After realizing that In Bum is the dean's son, Dr. Kim smiled with excitement, because In Bum is operating on patients at another hospital. If Dr. Kim goes after him, In Bum will be disqualified from practicing medicine. This made the director very angry. He didn't realize that at this critical moment, his son became the enemy's target. Dr. Kim used the director's son as blackmail. He demanded that the headquarter hospital deliver the new equipment as soon as possible, and demanded that the director's son, In Bum, work at the hospital. But the director thinks that Dr. Kim is using his son to take revenge on him. But Dr. Kim is interested in Bum's spirit to save the patients. But the director won't just sit back and do nothing. He arranged for the chief of surgery at the headquarters hospital to lead some of the staff from each department to report to Dr. Kim's hospital. The aim is to drive Dr. Kim out of the hospital, so that he could get the chance to operate on the chairman. The next day, a lot of new equipment arrived at the hospital. This made Ray Jing very happy. At that moment, the chairman called to ask about the surgery date. Dr. Kim told him to wait for an announcement. Suddenly, a wounded man was rushed to the emergency room. Ray Jing cut off the victim's clothes. The victim had multiple stab wounds in his abdomen. Luckily, his vital signs were still normal, but when checking his back, found a deeper wound. After a preliminary judgment, something like a razor blade was left inside the patient's body. Then the doctor arranged for the police, and prepared to give the patient emergency surgery. At that moment, the chief of surgery arrived. The chief of surgery thinks that the hospital is too small to perform the surgery. Dr. Kim said that surgery is not based on the size of the hospital. It's all about the skill of the surgeon. No matter how much Dr. Kim tried to persuade him, the chief still insisted on not allowing the surgery, because his goal is to drive Dr. Kim out of the hospital. When everyone was at a standstill, Ray Jing suddenly interrupted and told him that this case can be operated on. Dr. Kim took this opportunity to tease the chief of surgery. Then the surgery was scheduled, but Dong-ju found a man in the restroom with a weapon in his waistband. He realized that this man was the one who got the patient's knife. He went to the chief of administration. The operation is being carried out in an orderly manner. Dong-ju arrived later. He told everyone that gangsters had entered the hospital. Before anyone could react, a man broke into an operating room holding Ray Jing hostage. He asked the doctor to stop the operation immediately, because the patient is a rapist. It was he who raped the man's wife and daughter. The man was devastated. The doctors sympathized with him. He said that if the law can't punish him, then he has to take the matter into his own hands. Dr. Kim looked at the broken man and concluded that he would not hurt Ray Jing, because he was not an evil person in the first place. Then he started the operation despite the man's emotions. Dong-ju, who was worried about Ray Jing's safety, didn't recommend the operation, but the head nurse gave Dr. Kim the scalpel. But no matter how he threatened, Dr. Kim never stopped the operation. At this point the man had gone from threatening to begging, because he didn't want to hurt innocent people. He finally gave Dr. Kim half an hour. At that moment, the man's family suddenly called. The daughter missed her father. This made the man close to breaking down. Dr. Kim, who finished the surgery, told him the patient's chances of being paralyzed even if he survives are high, and advised the man not to make himself a murderer because of this kind of person. He finally threw away the sickle in his hand, although he almost caused a big trouble, but in the hearts of his wife and daughter, he'll always be a good husband and father. On this day, a cleaning lady at the hospital touched a patient's neck. She realized that the patient had been misdiagnosed by the doctor, because just now, doctors determined that the patient was suffering from acute gastritis. Arranged for the nurse to give her anti-inflammatory drugs. Then he went to treat other patients. The cleaning lady thought she was wrong, so she didn't dare to jump to conclusions. Then she went to the doctor's office. She found a medical encyclopedia, and she started reading up on the patient's condition. At that moment, a doctor came in. He was puzzled by her behavior. When she was discovered, the janitor fled in a panic. Then she went back to the emergency room, and that's when it happened. The patient suddenly had trouble breathing. She didn't care too much, rushed to get the first aid tools. Then she intubated the patient. Dr. Kim arrived and determined that the patient had a subcutaneous emphysema. He couldn't believe that a hospital cleaner could do that. And then, Dr. Kim found the cleaning lady, and asked if she had ever practiced medicine, and the cleaning lady seemed to have something to hide. The patient's vital signs are dropping. Surgery must be performed immediately, and 2 prosecutors came to the hospital, claiming that Dr. Kim's previous surgery paralyzed the patient. Is considered medical malpractice? Suspend him immediately and investigate. This is exactly what the director planned, and the one who reported him was the chief of surgery. If Dr. Kim insists on doing the surgery, it'll be the end of his career. On the other hand, the cleaning lady is packing her things. Then she's leaving the hospital. Unbeknownst to her, when she returns, she's a different person. These 2 rich kids were driving drunk on the highway, and the next thing you know, the car accident caused many cars to rear end. The scene was just spotted by Dong-ju and Ray Jing, who were passing by. While rescuing the slightly injured patients, they called the hospital for help. Then they continued to check the rest of the cars, but they found the rich kids, who caused the accident with a drunk driver. However, they were not injured. A hospital ambulance arrived, but Dong-ju found a girl who was unconscious from the accident. Dong-ju complained that the female driver didn't install a child seat. The mother was also remorseful. On the other hand, Ray Jing found a white helmet on the side of the road. An injured traffic cop was lying in the distance. Dr. In-bum arrived at that moment. He quickly joined the rescue team. Dong-ju arranged for the injured mother and daughter to be taken to the hospital. Then he noticed something unusual. He called out for Ray Jing. Following the direction of his finger, there seemed to be someone under the car. When the door was opened, it was the 2 rich kids, who had been drinking and driving. Underneath the car was another injured traffic cop. Luckily, his vital signs are still normal. On the other side, Dr. Kim told the doctors to get ready, because there will be a large number of injured people to be delivered. But at this point, the prosecutor is still on his ass, claiming that he won't be allowed to treat patients until the investigation is over. Just then, the injured girl was the first to be brought in. Dr. Kim rushed the girl to the emergency room, but suddenly, the scene in front of us surprised everyone. It turned out that the mother and daughter were the prosecutor's wife and daughter. Dr. Kim diagnosed the girl as having severe bleeding in her skin and organs, requiring immediate surgery. Since all the other doctors went to the scene to rescue her, Dr. Kim is the only one in the hospital who can operate, but the prosecutor still wanted to stick to his principles. Everyone is disappointed in the prosecutor's father. Others are willing to sacrifice everything to save their children, but he didn't care about his daughter's life for the sake of his job. His wife was also surprised. Dr. Kim was furious at his persistence, but the operation was scheduled. The operation was a success. Dr. Kim told the girl's mother the good news, and said that she could be transferred to a normal ward after 1 day of observation. The mother thanked Dr. Kim profusely. She said he was a good doctor. The prosecutor was also touched by Dr. Kim Kim's behavior, he decided to drop the investigation. On the other hand, the traffic police rushed to the scene of the accident to conduct a sobriety test. The rich kid refused to cooperate, because his father is a congressman, but Ray Jean didn't give him the time of day, so she took the man's blood, but that's what got her in trouble. The next day, the rich kid was playing a game as if nothing had happened. In the face of Ray Jing's scolding, he didn't feel guilty at all. At that moment, the rich kid's mother arrived. She looked at Ray Jing with disdain. She didn't want to disturb her son's rest. She told her to get a lawyer to take care of it. This made Ray Jing feel helpless. And then the rich kid's mother asked to be discharged from the hospital as soon as possible. But the rich kid claims he can't get out of the hospital for a while, because last night's blood test showed a DUI. When he leaves the hospital, he has to go to the police station. Then Ray Jing was called to the dean's office. The rich kid's lawyer accused her of taking blood without her client's consent. This constitutes the crime of intentional injury. But not long after leaving, she was called by the chief of surgery. The chief scolded Ray Jing. It's obvious that it's the rich kid's mother's fault. The chief told Ray Jing to apologize to the patient. Ray Jing thought she had done nothing wrong. Under pressure from the rich kid's mother, the director continued to demand an immediate apology. But Ray Jing chose to leave. She hurried to the hospital room. She took away the rich kid who was playing games. She pushed him out of the room. They went to the emergency room. Ray Jing showed him the patients who were injured because of him. Even the playboy felt deeply remorseful. At that moment, the rich kid's mother appeared. Seeing her son's sadness, she was furious. She went up to Ray Jing and gave him a big slap in the face. In the end, they were all called to the dean's office. The rich mother was still aggressive. Ray Jing had to kneel down and apologize before she could put an end to this. They all pointed their fingers at Ray Jing, but Dr. Kim says he's not the head of the department. If we have to fight to the death, let's bring up the drunken driving of the congressman's son. His wife beat him up in the hospital and posted it on the internet. Then the matter was closed. The rich kid also felt deeply guilty. He came to the emergency room to apologize, and he's willing to face the law. Dongju received an injured boy. He had multiple bruises on his abdomen. When Dongju asked him how he got hurt, he and his companion avoided answering. Dongju thinks it was caused by a beating. After examining it with a device, it's confirmed that there's internal bleeding caused by trauma. We need to take a CT and schedule a surgery immediately. But just then, two strange men came to the hospital. They claimed to be deserters from a nearby army and were here to arrest them. The head nurse brought them to the emergency room. The boy's companion spotted them. They packed up and fled the hospital. But on the way out, the boy suddenly fainted. He was in a lot of pain. This scene was just discovered by the doctor who came to work. When he heard that we have to take him to the hospital, but his companion refused to do so. After the doctor's persuasion, he agreed. The boy was taken back to the emergency room. He was already unconscious. His vital signs were not good. At that moment, two strange men suddenly arrived. After confirming that they were the person they were looking for, they contacted the army to take the boy away. This upset Dongju. He thought it was irresponsible to say that to an unconscious man. The man claimed it was his duty to catch deserters. Then they wanted to take the boy back. Dongju claimed that the patient's condition was critical. He needs to be operated on immediately. Otherwise, he could lose his life at any time. But the man insisted that the army hospital be the one to save him. While they were arguing, Dr. Kim arrived. He demanded that the boy be operated on immediately. The man claims that he's obstructing official business, but Dr. Kim gave him a briefing on the crime of obstruction of medical care. With his tough attitude, the boy is taken to the operating room. The operation is ready to begin. Due to the special nature of military personnel, Dr. Kim asked to record the entire procedure. Upon seeing the boy's wounds, it was determined that the rupture was caused by a severe beating. Surgery went well, but as soon as he was transferred to the ward, the boy's vital signs dropped rapidly. Dongsu informed the troopers of the situation, claiming that the boy's septic shock was caused by inflammation in the abdominal cavity. It is likely to cause immediate death. At that moment, the boy suddenly went into cardiac arrest. No matter how the doctors tried to save him, his life stopped forever. The army didn't want to take the blame. They called the director of the headquarters hospital and asked him to take care of it. Then the director arrived, called Dongju to his office, and gave him a document. It's a death certificate, and the cause of death was illness. If Dongju signed it, the army wouldn't be held responsible. But the director made Dongju an offer he couldn't refuse, that he would become the chief of surgery. But he wasn't tempted. Instead, he told the boy's parents the details of the case. He also gave them the death report and the entire surgery on a flash drive, and said he'd be in touch if he needed to testify. On the other hand, Dr. Kim found the chairman. He told him the date of the surgery. He said he'll lead his team to do his best. After getting the news, the president started his plot again. The hospital's cleaning lady has returned in force, and this time, she's applying for a job as a doctor. She came to this country hospital not long ago. The atmosphere here made her feel warm. She was also impressed by Dr. Kim's medical ethics. That's why she's applying for the job. Everyone is very happy to welcome her. On the other hand, Dr. Kim is holding a meeting to study the chairman's surgery. Due to the difficulty of the surgery, Dr. Kim asked his team to do 3 simulations to make sure that the president's surgery is safe. After a series of discussions, the team was very confident about the surgery. Then the chairman's daughter came to the hospital. She persuaded her father to go to the headquarters hospital. Then she went to check out of the hospital. When she went out, she saw Dr. Kim, and Dr. Kim told her the shocking news. The chairman has terminal lung cancer. The doctors are discussing the patient's condition. The chief of surgery and Dong Ju are arguing over the diagnosis. Dong Ju thinks it's pancreatitis. The chief and In Bum think it's the colon. At that moment, the patient's blood pressure is dropping rapidly. Then the chief of surgery scheduled the operation. Dr. In Bum will be the lead surgeon. Then the operation started. But when the patient's abdomen was cut open, he realized it wasn't the colon. At this point, Dong Ju suggested to cut the tail of the pancreas. However, the results confirmed Dr. Dong Ju's diagnosis. Dr. In Bum, the surgeon in charge, is very upset. He couldn't believe it. Even the chief could make a mistake. Then he called for help, but the chief didn't give a damn. In Bum reported the situation and claimed to have treated similar cases. With the chief's permission, the surgery continues, but Dong Ju doesn't believe he's done this kind of surgery. He thinks he's just practicing on a patient. The surgery is underway, but In Bum seems to be very nervous. His hands are shaking a bit. This makes the doctors feel helpless. Then he asked to call the chief again. Dr. Kim is not happy with this behavior of calling for advice while operating. He ordered the chief to go to the operating room to help. Then the chief arrived. He was doing the surgery. He explained the key points of the operation. Everyone was surprised. They didn't expect the chief to be so good. Just when he thought it was over perfectly, the patient's blood spurted out. He was in a panic, but with the help of the doctors, finally stopped the patient's bleeding point. Seeing that the director can't control the situation, as an assistant, Dong Ju couldn't stand it. He wanted to clean up this mess for the director, because he had simulated it many times in secret, but he surprised everyone with his operation. What he didn't know was, Dong Ju was watching Dr. Kim's surgery. After countless simulations, he was able to complete the operation in the time he wanted. Seeing that his technique was so similar to his own, Dr. Kim smiled with relief. Then Dr. Kim approached In Bum. Because this surgery was caused by his mistake, he insisted on operating on the patient without any experience. This made Dr. Kim, who is a healer, very angry. Afterwards, Dr. Kim approached the president. He told him about the advanced stage of lung cancer. The chairman is not sure if he's going to live or die. After leaving, Dr. Kim held a surgery seminar. He decided to abandon the operation and dismissed the team. Afterwards, the chairman came to Dr. Kim's office alone. He still insisted on believing in Dr. Kim's medical skills. After the chairman left, Dr. Kim was hesitant. He looked at the 7 hours and 30 minutes. To improve the patient's chances of survival, he had to shorten the surgery to less than 6 hours. Then he told his team, but Dong Ju disagreed. He thinks it's too risky. If it works, it's a good thing. If it fails, he would be blamed by the head of the headquarters hospital. But Dr. Kim doesn't want to see the patient die. Even if there is a small chance, he wants the patient to recover. When the head of the headquarters hospital got the news, he didn't want the surgery to be successful. Then, the director approached Dr. Kim, claiming that he was here to provide support on behalf of the headquarters, and asked to replace Dr. Kim's surgical team members, to be replaced by doctors from the headquarters hospital. This decision was rejected by Dr. Kim, but the director had already predicted this. He offered to broadcast the surgery live. The crowd was shocked. This means that the entire operation will be publicized. If there are any mistakes, they could be held legally liable, and cause mental stress to the medical staff. In the face of this unreasonable request, Dr. Kim had no choice. Then a meeting was held to study the surgery. The team members were downcast. They didn't know whether to continue the surgery or not. At that moment, Dong Ju went to the blackboard. He shortened the surgery time by 5 minutes. Dr. Kim is very happy. He hoped that his team members would support him. They finally agreed to the surgery. They also wanted to write their names in the medical world. Under Dr. Kim's leadership, they wanted to write their own names in the medical world. Afterwards, everyone prepared for the surgery, familiarizing themselves with the work to be done. Dr. Kim was worried about shortening the time, but Dong Ju approached In Bum, because he knew that In Bum had some skills. He wanted him to join the operation. He shared half of his work with him. This will also shorten the operation time, although In Bum was ungrateful on the surface. But in fact, he was very happy. Dr. Kim, after racking his brains, he was able to shorten the surgery to 6 hours and 20 minutes. The surgery is on schedule, but not long after the start, Ray Jing's mistake caused the patient's blood flow to stop. The patient has advanced lung cancer. There's no room for error during the surgery. Dr. Kim tried to calm Ray Jing, hoping that she will be able to pull herself together. Then, Dr. Kim began to remedy the situation. He operated with a very fast hand. The crowd outside the operating room watched in amazement. With Dr. Kim's precise operation, Ray Jing's mistake has been remedied, but there was already a 10-minute delay. At that moment, a patient arrived at the emergency room. In Bum went out to check the patient's condition. The initial diagnosis is that the ulcer is perforated and requires immediate surgery. Due to Ray Jing's mistake, there has been a delay of 10 minutes. Dongju didn't want to waste any more time. He carefully analyzes the surgical procedure. According to the current situation, he'll need about an hour and 20 minutes. It will take about 1 hour and 20 minutes. If he completes the ulcer perforation surgery within that time, it would be the best of both worlds. The two of them have talked it over. If they put their best foot forward, we can guarantee to finish the surgery within an hour, Dongju told the head nurse. He said he won't delay the operation. Then Dongju and Inbum started treating the ulcer patient. Both surgeries are synchronized. Time passes by. Dongju and Inbum are moving forward methodically. But Dr. Kim, who doesn't know what's going on, is speeding up. He wants to make up for lost time. His years of experience and mental toughness make his surgery a textbook example. With the successful intubation, the extracorporeal circulation began. The cardiac connection was completed in 1 hour and 25 minutes. This has already broken the fastest record in history. But at that moment, Inbum and Dongju are very surprised. They couldn't believe it. Dr. Kim is so fast. It's shorter than they expected. In order not to delay the surgery on the other side, Dongju is gradually accelerating. He's trying his best to increase his speed. The nurse is urging Dongju to be there in 10 minutes. Dongju is trying to increase his speed. Dongju uses the automatic suture machine to close the suture. After leaving the rest of the work to the assistant doctor, Dongju and Inbum rush to the other side. As Dr. Kim's surgery ends, they arrived in time for Dr. Kim's surgery. Dongju and Inbum started the operation under Dr. Kim's supervision. Time passes by. Dongsu removes the battery from the patient's body. Their operation is officially over. Their operation time has been shortened by 2 minutes. Every second they can spare, the patient has a better chance of survival. With the change of position, Dr. Kim has officially taken over. The next and most important step is to replace the heart. Dr. Kim carefully removes the patient's heart and asked the head nurse to prepare the connecting tube. And then he started suturing. It's a shocking sight for those who are watching the operation. Dr. Kim puts the artificial heart into the patient and connects it. As the medical staff flicked the switch, the patient's artificial heart was activated. Seeing the heart working properly, the crowd smiles with relief. The experts on the sidelines are in disbelief. It doesn't make sense. It takes at least 4 hours for the heart to start beating again. It only took 4 hours and 5 minutes. At this time, the president is not happy. If Dr. Kim succeeds in reviving the chairman, it could affect his position as president. Then, a man went to the doctor's office. He went to Dr. Kim's room. He photographed the files on Dr. Kim's desk and looked through the files in the file box. He finally found what he was looking for. On the other side, the artificial heart transplant in the operating room has been completed. It took 6 hours and 2 minutes. Dr. Kim is very satisfied with the result. Everyone is very happy. The more successful Dr. Kim is, the more unhappy the director is. He had to find a way to stop Dr. Kim. So he said that Dr. Kim's assistant touched the patient's aorta during the surgery. He wanted to hold him medically liable. Dr. Kim claimed it was normal, but the director thought that such a mistake could have caused the patient's brain death. And Dr. Kim revealed that he didn't want the president to wake up. This made the president panic. But Dr. Kim turned around and left. The next day, the chairman still didn't wake up even though he was expected to wake up at the scheduled time. The president came with the chairman's daughter. He asked for a CT scan of the chairman. Dr. Kim was disgusted by this disgusting director. He said that the chairman has a lot of equipment attached to his body. If something goes wrong during the CT scan, I can't imagine the consequences. But the director said that Dr. Kim's motives were not pure. Then he wanted to close down the hospital in the countryside. He demanded a CT scan on the president's behalf. However, Dr. Kim pulled out a document from his pocket. This is what the president told him before he went into the operating room. Before he woke up, Dr. Kim would be in charge of everything. The daughter couldn't believe it. Her father trusted this doctor so much. The chairman's secretary also confirmed the authenticity of the document and said that it's been authenticated by a lawyer, which means the document is legally binding. They had no choice but to leave. But Dongju picked up the document thrown away by the president, but he realized it was a report. It's a plan to establish an emergency trauma center. Dongju couldn't believe it. Dr. Kim was trying to save the chairman for this reason. Then, Dr. Kim approached the chairman's daughter. He said that the emergency trauma center was created to save more patients. patients. He didn't use it as a bargaining chip to save the chairman. But the chairman's daughter didn't listen to him. She only cared about how much money the hospital could make for herself. Dr. Kim scolded the chairman's daughter. Then he turned around and left. But then the president arrived. He arranged for a transfer to the headquarter hospital. While the two sides were at a standstill, the chairman moved his finger. Ray Jing noticed it and told Dr. Kim the good news. Then Dr. Kim arrived. At Master Kim's call, the chairman moved his finger. At this moment, Dr. Kim was also very excited. This also means that his hard work and perseverance is not in vain. The chairman held Dr. Kim's hand tightly. At this moment, he is gradually regaining consciousness. The chairman's daughter was thrilled at the news. She rushed to the hospital. At that moment, the president realized that his plan was about to fail. Then, the president's daughter arrived. She was so excited that she fell on her father's body. Seeing this, the president could only think of other ways. While going downstairs, he saw Dong Ju. Suddenly, he thought of another plan. The next day, Dong Ju received a document from the headquarters hospital. When he opened it, he found a record of a surgery. The patient's name was his father. He remembered that his father had died because of the delayed treatment. He looked at the report in front of him in disbelief. The attending doctor was Dr. Kim. On this day, a patient came to the hospital first, but the doctor wanted to save the patient who came after him. The reason was that he looked more serious. Dong Ju thought that the patients should be treated in order of priority, but Dr. Kim wanted to treat the seriously injured patient. Then he turned around and left. Dong Ju was very upset. It turns out, Dong Ju's father came to the hospital first, but the doctor prioritized another patient. His father also died because of the delayed treatment, and the doctor in charge was Dr. Kim. Dong Ju couldn't believe that he would make such a choice. Dr. Kim claimed that Dong Ju's father was an acute aortic dissection patient. The mortality rate increases by 1% every hour, and the patient he was treating had a heart attack. The mortality rate is 99% within an hour. As a doctor, he had no choice. Dong Ju knew this very well, but as a son, he couldn't let it go. Then, Dr. Kim scheduled the surgery. He asked Dong Ju if he could continue to operate, because he was very upset. Dr. Kim was afraid that it would affect the patient's surgery, but Dong Ju said he could. The two surgeries were synchronized. Dong Ju had a little incident on the way, but he solved it easily. After the surgery, Dong Ju still can't get rid of the knot in his heart. He verbally attacked Dr. Kim at every turn. He couldn't accept that his teacher was responsible for his father's death. He couldn't get over it. A male doctor at the hospital overheard all this. Then the male doctor found Dong Ju. He told him the truth. Dr. Kim didn't know that his father came to the hospital first, and that Dr. Kim helped him to fix the damage to the hospital's equipment. Then Dong Ju realized that he had misunderstood Dr. Kim. The next day, the news reported that the director was responsible for the success of the heart surgery. The staff was furious. Dr. Kim gathered everyone together. Dr. Kim gathered everyone together and told them that they were invited to a celebration dinner at the hospital. In the evening, the dean was celebrating this unearned credit. Suddenly, Dr. Kim arrives with a group of people, and he's holding a document in his hand. Dr. Kim saw this scene. He didn't expect the dean to be so shameless, to give all the results to himself. And the dean never thought that Dr. Kim would dare to come to see him. He was very upset. It also meant that Dr. Kim declared war on him. Afterwards, Dr. Kim threw the file in his hand to the other side. Inside was a list of his crimes over the years. He was in a panic. He offered to make a deal with Dr. Kim, but Dr. Kim didn't want to compromise with the dean anymore. He ordered him to step down. This made him very embarrassed. Suddenly, the dean became angry. Then the two of them fought, but the statue collapsed and injured Dr. Kim's wrist. The doctors rushed Dr. Kim to the hospital. As doctors, they know very well, a surgeon's hand is more important than his own life. Dr. Kim didn't want everyone to worry about him. He kicked everyone out. He listened to the doctor's diagnosis alone. Then the neurologist arrived. Ray Jing was very worried. She didn't think Dr. Kim's condition was that good. In order not to worry everyone, Dr. Kim quickly went back to work. He left all the surgeries at the hospital to Dong Ju. After leaving, Dong Ju found Ray Jing. He thinks Dr. Kim is hiding something. Ray Jing was very worried. Then he found Dr. Kim. He saw his hands were not flexible. Ray Jing went to help him. She asked Dr. Kim about his injuries, but Dr. Kim told her not to worry. On the other side, the chairman was transferred to the general ward. Their relationship has become very delicate. He is worried about Dr. Kim's wrist, because he knows that Dr. Kim is a rare medical genius, but Dr. Kim didn't tell him the truth. At that moment, the president arrived just in time. He said he had something urgent to report to the president. Dr. Kim also had the good sense to leave suddenly. The dean fell to his knees. Everyone is confused. The director confessed his crimes to the chairman, because he thought that all his behavior, Dr. Kim must have told the president, but the president said that Dr. Kim didn't tell him anything. At this point, the president is very helpless. He couldn't believe that Dr. Kim didn't say anything, and he was the one who confessed to the crime. After leaving, the director found Dr. Kim. He asked Dr. Kim, why he lived like this. With such a high level of medical skill, he was willing to work as an emergency surgeon in a rural hospital. Dr. Kim told him one thing. He told him to never forget the beginning and remember his mission. This is the end of the movie. If you're interested, please like it and follow it. See you next time.